And Doug, when you look at the additions that the Browns have made to this defense, it's pretty clear they have upgraded the athleticism pretty much at all three levels. By design, do you think?
Oh, man, everything Andrew Berry does is by design. I don't know what he's going to do next offseason. It was like first offseason, reshape the offense. Second offseason, reshape the defense. I don't know. Maybe he'll get a long snapper next year. But, I mean, now you're going to be in maintenance mode, right? I mean, this was really like Andrew Berry, very strategic. One side of the ball, then the other, very targeted, very specific. And the thing that I think, and we were joking about this on our Orange and Brown Talk podcast, is we should all start to get pretty good at guessing what Andrew Berry is going to do, because he seems to like, it's like, hey, we could use that. I think the Browns could use that. And then Andrew Berry goes and gets that. And it's like, okay, well, that seemed kind of smart and obvious. Okay. Then you do it again. So it's like Jack Conklin at right tackle, Jedrick Wills at left tackle, John Johnson at safety, Troy Hill at slot corner. Now Greg Newsome at outside corner. It's like, I'm not saying that, Dave, that you and I could have done it, because it's one thing to see it and it's another thing to execute it. But like, nobody's stunned here today. But, sometimes it's fun to be stunned. But I would say the last 20 years for Browns fans, being stunned has not been that fun. So to like see the obvious thing and address the obvious thing, quite a deal. And I think he's done it now in 2 off seasons in free agency. And I think he did it last year in the draft. And I think so far in round 1, he did it this year in the draft.
The other thing is you've kind of touched on that. Are you getting more and more confident with every decision he makes? I mean, because he's not overthinking himself. There's something that clearly you look at and you say, boy, they could use improvement in this area. And then he goes out and improves it.
I actually asked that question before the draft last night. Because listen, right, we had seen the free agency stuff. I think a lot of the Andrew Berry praise and why people feel confident in him had really been about free agency so far, the targeted approach to that. So last year's like Jedrick Wills, again, obvious at left tackle, took a good guy. There were some other tackles he could have taken. There were a lot of right answers to take at 10, did a good job. Grant Delpit got hurt. And then the rest of last year's draft, we don't really know, right? I mean, do we know how good Jacob Phillips is? Do we know how good Jordan Elliott is? Do we know how good Nick Harris, Donovan Peoples-Jones seemed like a nice little hit at 6, but we don't really know. But I think people still, for whatever reason, I think free agency, did have confidence in Andrew Berry. But I sort of was like, well, are we giving him too much credit, for draft stuff? But then Greg Newsome, I think, is like, no, I think, yeah, no, give him credit. I would expect him to do some very smart, targeted things tonight. So, there's not like crazy upside reaches. There doesn't feel like a moment where they plan to do one thing and then some guy was available, so they just went that way instead. Like they have a plan and they execute the plan. And it feels like, well, if plan A is not there, then they have plan B. And again, like, I don't know, who's going to argue with that?